Welcome to INN CEO Talks. Joining me today is Ed Bereznicki, the president and CEO of First Helium, which trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol HELI, and on the Frankfurt under the symbol 2MC. Mr. Bereznicki is a seasoned energy executive with E&P, risk management, operations, and pipelines experience, as well as 15 years of corporate finance, capital markets, and financial advisory expertise as a senior energy investment banker with Raymond James and GMP. He has raised over $20 billion in value for startups and IPOs in the energy sector, and he's been involved in over 30 successful M&A transactions, totaling more than $4.5 billion. And now he is turning his formidable talents to the helium sector, where the demand is rising. First Helium's core property is located in Worsley, Alberta, and that's in close proximity to key helium processing and liquefaction infrastructure in the western and central United States. The company has successfully tested its first discovery well, and it is now looking forward to bringing it into production, along with exploring and developing future helium resources on its significant underdeveloped land base at Worsley. Ed, welcome, and please bring us up to speed. Tell us more about First Helium.
Well, good afternoon, Stuart, and thank you for having us this afternoon to talk about First Helium and some of the exciting things that we're working on. As you pointed out, our key property is located in northern Alberta, just north of Grand Prairie. We have an existing well, we call it the 15 of 25, which is tested successfully numerous times now for helium. We're looking forward to bringing that well into production. I'm going to say early next year, first quarter next year. It's been tested at 1.3%, and pending facility or facility construction and site preparation, we'd be bringing that well into production about 9 to 12 months, as I mentioned. The Worsley area is approximately 79,000 acres. We've done extensive geological and geophysical work on the area. We've shot seismic. We've purchased additional lands, and we've identified numerous other prospective drill locations in the area. One of the interesting things about exploring for helium in the Worsley area is that it's a well-known area for oil and gas exploration historically. So we have access to a lot of data from previous drilling and operations, and it enables us to understand where the helium resides and where we might explore for it and bring it into production. It also mitigates our risk from an exploration perspective. It's a value-added product that we can produce alongside the helium. Most notably, our recent drill that we announced in December turned out to be a successful oil well, in addition to allowing us to examine other helium zones and horizons that we would look to explore further elsewhere on the property. So this well allows us to cash flow. We'll be producing about 400 barrels a day from this well over the next while. It gives us some financial flexibility, and we'll certainly explore ways to capture that value for shareholders. Our key strategy, our key business focus is helium going forward, Stuart.
So the oil well was just a little bonus on the side.
A little bit of serendipity for certain, but what it did do is confirmed our geologic model. We have 3D, as I mentioned, on the bulk of the play, and where we identified this 1 of 30 well to go, we hit exactly what we wanted to hit, and turned out to be oil. And 20% of Leduc producers over the area, in fact, are oil, and the other 80% are natural gas. So a nice surprise, and not entirely surprising.
You know, for a lot of viewers, they don't really know much about helium and what the market is. You know, in my introduction, I talked about the fact that you're close to production facilities. Tell us a little bit about the market for helium and why it's important that you're in that kind of proximity to be able to get to those production facilities.
Sure. So Canada is reasonably new to the helium exploration and production game. Um, Primarily, the peer group has been operating in southern Saskatchewan, a little bit in southern Alberta. We do have some helium production out of that area and expect to see more over time. Northern Alberta is a little bit further away. That said, with our added value hydrocarbons, it's barely a day's drive extra, and so we see ourselves in great proximity to what is going to evolve as a helium hub in southern Alberta, and also connectivity to a very robust U.S. market. And so for the viewers that don't understand the logistics of helium tremendously, in Canada, the helium is generally gathered by truck at the actual well site, if you will, in pressurized trucks, taken to centralized processing facilities, and then liquefied from there. So the trip with us at our Worsley property would start with a pressurized tanker truck that would take the helium away for further processing and liquefaction.
Okay, where are the markets for helium? Because as I understand, we're seeing a demand well, I talked about a rising demand. What are the sectors that are seeking out more secure sources of helium? And I know most of them are in the United States.
Yeah, so helium is an interesting gas in that its properties, its physical properties, make it so useful and so necessary that whoever is buying it is really almost a critical path customer. I mean, aside from maybe party balloons, the scientific and research community needs it for its research activities. The medical community absolutely relies on it, in particular for MRI machines. So when it's liquid form, it's used to cool the magnets, but it's also used for breathing gases as well. The other area we see it used a tremendous amount in is for specialized or industrial welding applications. So there's certain types of welding that absolutely rely on helium. And then two of the big growth areas now, space exploration, not just for sending, say, manned or rockets with people on board, but also for satellites, weather, and those types of applications. The helium is used to purge the rocket engines. And perhaps the biggest growth area moving forward is in the manufacture of semiconductor chips. So semiconductor wafers. With the recent pandemic and supply chain problems, a lot of countries are starting to bring that manufacture home. Most recently, the U.S. President Biden announced a commitment towards bringing that home. So in Canada, we'll use it. Historically, the U.S. has been a big supplier of helium, and so a lot of the centralized processing is there. But all of that said, we see great demand in North America for all of the items, the uses I spoke to earlier, Stuart.
And so with that rising demand, does that then come back to you and say, okay, there is, in essence, a need and a demand that's being put on us to continue to explore? So what's the upside of your exploration efforts?
So in terms of the demand that's been created, I should just mention that the U.S. government had pulled out, essentially privatized the helium business, auctioning off their large helium reserve, and it really opened up the opportunity for junior explorers such as ourselves and others that have begun operating. So in our exploration efforts, as I mentioned, we've got the one well, the 15 of 25. We see a number of other drill locations that we'll continue to explore. Our goal would be to bring on a number of wells, establish a larger processing facility in the Worsley area, and then potentially liquefaction in the future, depending on size of volume. So the upside really lies in finding more helium and bringing that helium on for production and sale.
So you've got cash flow right now. You've got an expansion of resource ahead of you. What do you want viewers to take away from this interview as they consider whether or not they want to invest in First Helium?
Yeah, a couple key things. Currently, with the 15 of 25 helium well, we've had independent engineering work done on that well by a credible third-party engineer that gave us a value of approximately $15 million. The recent well that we brought on, the oil well, producing at 400 barrels a day at today's oil prices, gives us approximately $6 to $7 million in cash flow a year on an initial basis. If you capitalize those items, we've got an underlying asset value of about $35 million, which is about 50 cents a share in base value. And it provides no value for the exploration upside we have at Worsley and also in our southern Alberta property, which I haven't talked to a bunch about yet, Stu. So base underlying value with tremendous exploration upside in other known helium producing regions is the key message.
Well, you foreshadowed very nicely. Let's talk about your southern Alberta property.
Certainly. So in the spring of 21, just prior to us going public, we secured an exclusive option on 880,000 acres of land. And then there was approximately another, it was a tremendous amount. I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but there was a tremendous amount of seismic coverage on the area as well. And based on the work we did there, Stuart, we handpicked or selected approximately 270,000 acres, roughly a third of that acreage, on a high-grade basis to lock down and further evaluate over the next 2 years. And we've already got 2 to 3 drillable locations that we would look to get to this year. And the good thing about this property is that it's 2/3 covered by 3D seismic, which is an invaluable tool in allowing us to evaluate and pinpoint where we'd like to drill with great specificity.
You got an exciting future ahead of you right now, especially with the increase in demand in the market and your upside in exploration capacity. So I know that there are people who are watching who are going to say, okay, Ed, are you going to come back and give us an update in a few months and tell us what more there is to know?
Absolutely, I'd be thrilled to. We've got a number of catalysts in Q1 that are exciting. We've telegraphed some of them and be happy to come back and visit you again, Stuart, as we continue to make progress here throughout the year.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Stuart.